So since the start of lockdown, I have been addicted to making YouTube videos. So I have done 10 minutes, which is the third. Come on! So why stop now? In this video we will be canoeing on the River Severn. So the route we will be canoeing takes us from Shrewsbury, or Shrewsbury as some other people say, to Ironbridge. And this will take 4 to 6 hours, so will be doable in a day. Shrewsbury and Ironbridge are some of the most famous sites on the River Severn, and Ironbridge is quite famous for its iron bridge which goes over the River Severn. Now, I have canoed on this river 2 other times. For my gold practice, we did a day's practice, and we went from Newtown in Wales to Abermule. And the reason we practiced on that river is because as that point is at the bottom of the source, which is high up in mountains, the river was faster flowing on that section. So Dave, who was teaching us how to canoe on fast rivers, thought this would be an ideal place to practice, and it wasn't that much harder than usual, but it's still a bit fast flowing bit. And the other time was on my D Silver practice, and we canoed from the Welsh border to Shrewsbury. We stayed at a campsite on the Welsh border. It was literally on the border. The first night it was just into Wales, and then on the second night we stayed in Montford Bridge. So I've had experience of canoeing on this river before, but I haven't done the stretch that we're going to do in this video. So where we started was actually where I ended for my D Silver, in the same car park. So we set off through Shrewsbury, and Shrewsbury is quite an urban area, so there were obviously a lot more bridges and a lot more buildings and parks on either side of the river. Also, Shrewsbury was one of the only places where we actually saw other people on the river, such as this lady rowing here. So because the river in Shrewsbury looks like this, we were now re-entering the centre after having left the centre ages ago. So we then approached the Shrewsbury weir. So because of excessive danger signs beforehand, my mum was getting a little bit worried. So I had to persuade her everything would be okay. So I didn't really film it because I obviously had more important things to think about. But the canoeing website I got this route from said the weir wasn't dangerous and it was basically the most entertaining bit of the paddle because it's basically just a water slide for boats. So on the outskirts of Shrewsbury, we canoed through this very narrow, overgrown bit of river. But this came with its challenges, as we then grounded to a halt, because it was also quite a shallow section of river too. So here we are trying to wriggle our way out. But eventually I had to get out, get my trousers wet, but it is inevitable that you get wet whilst canoeing. And I sort of had to push the boat. But the boat was sideways to the river, so when I was pushing, it was quite difficult to swing my mum round as well. But we did eventually get back in, but because whilst I was pushing it, we'd moved over to the faster flowing section, there was a tree in the way. So we had to battle with the tree to get past it, but luckily we did, and no injuries were caused, or no equipment like my GoPro was damaged either. The weather was weird on this day because it would be sunny for like an hour and then rain for 5 minutes. Sunny for an hour, rain for 5 minutes, which is what the weather forecast did say, occasional showers. So we were well prepared and we just got on with it during the short rain spells. Yeah. We then went under what was our favourite bridge of the whole trip, and we heard this weird noise. We then approached what would be our first, but not our last, rapidy section, but it's just fast flowing water, so it was nothing that we hadn't dealt with before. So, initially I was quite scared when I saw these swans after what happened last time, but we just paddled on the opposite side of the river and they didn't bother us at all. I think on the river Trent, the swans have more aggressive genes because genes get passed down through families. So maybe all the families that breed on the river Trent give their offspring more aggressive genes, and that's why they came close to us on that river, but not this one. So I then started to develop pins and needles in my feet. So I put my feet up and rested them on the sides, and it was actually quite comfortable, and it did actually get rid of my pins and needles, luckily. We then approached the small village of Action, which was about halfway between the start and the changeover location. We then saw some people cutting down trees, which was absolutely fine, but what they were cutting down, they'd let drift in the river. So as we were going downstream, we saw all these tree remnants, and that actually made it more difficult to navigate, because we obviously had to navigate around them. So it wasn't a windy day, but this section was a bit windy because there wasn't high banks on either side. So as you can see, the waves are coming towards us. So even though we were going downstream, because the wind was against us, if we rested, we wouldn't have gone anywhere. Because normally as you're going downstream, if you rest, you're still moving. That's one of the good things about canoeing, but not in this instance. This pub here marks the changeover point, and the two other members of my family have gotten into the boat and are doing the final third. The reason we did the 2/3 was because there wasn't any good changeover places at the halfway point. So the official canoeing time was 4 hours 16 minutes, and the website said the whole thing from Shrewsbury to Ironbridge takes 4 to 6 hours. So hopefully they can do it in less than 1 hour 40, so that we can be in the 6 hours, because we don't want to say, well, it's 4 to 6 hours, but it took us 6.5. We will now eat lunch, get a coffee, and then drive to Ironbridge, and maybe we will see the Ironbridge, because this Ironbridge is very famous because they've named the town after the bridge, so we need to see the Ironbridge. We are now standing on the very famous Ironbridge, and some of the views we're getting are very, very good. That down there is the River Severn, so if we had carried on canoeing, we would have come down here, and then under the Ironbridge, and then that way.